pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight's resolutions. Number 1, meeting schedule.
Why are we going back to 9 a.m.?
Number of different reasons. I've said I would go with a 6-month schedule, which is what I did. And I feel that the 9 a.m. meetings were much more constructive. We got a lot more done. And we weren't tabling things, and the staff didn't have to sit here until 9 or 10 o'clock at night after working all day long, out of respect to them.
Well, that's their job. They have to come to these meetings.
Well, go ahead.
I honestly don't think it makes that much of an impact. I think at this point I prefer having it all on one night every other week.
I agree.
Well, it's not a vote. It's not a resolution by charter and by state law.
I mean, it is a resolution, because we can pass
We-
the
Not
resolution.
according to our legal team, who I spoke to an hour ago.
If we could get 2 trustees, I believe not to want this, we would
I mean,
be
It's
able
not a
to vote
resolution,
on it.
Michelle. There's no vote on it.
I know.
It's set by the,
but
well, then you know, no. So you don't.
It's not, it's not,
It's an inconvenience. Well, the people elected us for representing them
they
more than
won't be
twice
here
a
at
month.
9 a.m. on
I'm out.
Wednesday morning. They're working.
That's why it's on tape. They come here. This is the meeting they speak at. They don't speak at the workshops. This is where they speak.
And then how many
frankly, they're there.
walk-ons are we going to have? We had so many walk-ons.
Well, we've had an awful lot of
Last time
tables, which was
we
the
did
problem that
that.
we did it before. So I'm sorry, it works into people's schedule, but for the next
I
6
think it's
months, the schedule's already
undemocratic.
out.
I really do.
What is everyone else's feelings?
I'm actually good with it. I was fine with it before, I'm fine with it now.
I don't think there have been any more walk-ons this way than there were in the past. We've had, what do you have, 2 or 3 of them last meeting. We're getting walk-ons.
We had a lot more, though, last year. We did. Yes.
Well, I could go either way, it doesn't matter to me. A couple things I like about the morning meetings. I like the fact that when they're in the morning, the department heads are available.
Well, they should be available anyways.
Michelle, do you mind? The department heads are available because they're at work, right? Personally, it fits better into my schedule. And like the mayor said, the meetings are available online. It's not, the residents don't have the opportunity to speak at a workshop anyway. So I could go either way, but I don't have a problem
Okay.
with it.
Well, my concern is they hear the department head reports during the workshop. And I would rather have people here to hear it directly from them. And even if they had some questions following the workshop, they could ask them during the regular meeting when it's their time to speak. That's why I feel like it's an injustice.
Well, thank you for your opinion.
Yeah, I think
That is the schedule for the next 6 months.
it just flows better to have the workshop right before the meeting.
Right.
And then we don't run into not having time to discuss things that end up on the agenda, because it has been however many days.
That's why we do it, is to give you the preparation. We just hit this village with the largest tax increase it's had, period. And we have hardcore decisions to make in the next 12 months, or else we are going to be sitting here doing the same thing again. I think it takes more time and more dedication than an hour or 45 minutes before a meeting to research this by having the meetings on Wednesday morning. It gives you till Monday night the next week to ask questions, talk to the people you need to talk to, and go from there.
I don't agree.
You're
I
more than
didn't-
welcome not to agree.
I didn't mean that I do agree that it gives us more time to do outside of the 5 of us discussing things, but it gives us less time to to discuss potentially the things that are being put in front of us.
Right.
Because there is then no workshop before we're passing walk-on resolutions and all that.
I've heard you. I respect what you both say. If after another 6 months, we find that it doesn't work, we'll go back to the way we did before.
Mayor, my opinion
schedule's
is, I'll go either way.
So when do we have to bring things
It's
to the
already been sent
clerk?
to the newspaper.
Wait a minute, wait, let me finish. If we want something placed on the agenda, when do we give that information? And I know the clerk isn't here, but it would be the treasurer.
Wednesday or Thursday, just like it currently is.
Before the workshop?
No, after the workshop, Wednesday or Thursday, just like it is now.
That doesn't make sense because you got new business and old business during the workshop.
It worked 6 months ago, Michelle. We will
It
work
didn't
it out
work
again.
that well.
It would have to be,
I really-
it would have to be before the workshop.
It would have to be before the
So we
Yeah,
could-
workshop.
I
so we
think
could
we're at the-
discuss them.
I think it was the Friday before the workshop. Is
Okay,
that
then the
gave
Friday
for all
before that,
of,
I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
Monday and Tuesday to put it all on.
I understand what you're saying. I misunderstood, I apologize. Okay, number 2, abstract, 763 through 766. Number 3, budget transfer. Number 4, DPW truck purchase. I have a question. When did this come up, and was it in the original budget? Because I don't remember that.
To use CHIPS funding to purchase it,
Okay,
not the village funds.
okay.
Alyssa, how much would that impact our CHIPS budget then?
So this is just the chassis portion, and I don't have the actual rest of the truck itself. I had asked Scott to get it.
Okay.
He had to forget the other portion of the truck.
But we're given X amount of CHIPS funding annually,
I
correct?
believe we have currently 700,000
And
available.
I'm just asking how much of this, well, you only know the partial part of the truck purchase, so
So, so I'm not
so
sure
you
what
really
the
don't
rest of
know
it.
what the
Right.
total impact is. Okay.
Should we wait until we have the full,
Yes.
yeah.
Because I would
absolutely.
I would
agree.
hate to put the CHIPS portion towards us and all of a sudden find out that it needs another $100,000 worth of additional parts that we just don't have.
Or 300,000.
We're not in a position to do that. We're not in a position to use anything but grants and things that we have at this point.
Right.
We owe that to the people that we represent.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of pushing this down till we can get a definitive figure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hatch renewal,
Can I, just getting back to the truck, that wasn't a limited time offer, that was, because I know that there's problems with, could be problems, getting parts in if they're coming from overseas, and our price is gonna go up considerably if we wait too much longer. We need to find that out as well, because it
Well, it
did,
should have been the whole package then.
it
Where's Scott?
did mention in there that it's, there was a.
No, he's not.
Hold on, Michelle, that there was something
Paul
about
just asked me
tariffs, there was something
a
about
question.
tariffs in there. So we might want to find out if if a delay of any length of time is going to cost us more.
It just says that pricing does not include any future applicable tariffs,
Which means that,
if one were to happen.
yeah,
any further discussion on hatch renewal?
No. Has this gone up considerably, or is this right in line with what they've been charging us?
So I've actually only seen cost for it altogether, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
And finally, vendors' fees. I have a letter, one to discuss on the resolution, but I have a letter that was presented to me that I'll read tonight as part of that.
The only issue I have with it is I'd like it to be effective immediately and not April 1st, 2026.
We weren't going to implement it because it's already going to affect then
Right.
this
Yeah,
year's.
they
So that some
would pay
people,
anyway, and they would expire on March 31st.
So, but the problem that you run into is if you implement it now, then this year, some vendors will have to pay, and some vendors will have gotten away with the year for free.
I doubt it very much. How many vendors do we have out there vending that are not part of an organized event? Because we're waiving the fee for anyone who's part of the farm festival,
Right.
the farmer's market, the festivals that Festivals Fredonia runs.
Right.
So it would only be somebody who's setting up and vending independently that's been getting away with it for, what, a month, 2 months? Yeah, I would see no problem with starting it immediately.
I think we should stick with that 2026 date.
I would agree with trustee Syracuse.
It's just not great to impose a fee a month,
Yeah.
month and a half into your,
I agree. You know, if someone had intended to vend here and they weren't aware that there was a fee, and now we tell them there's a fee, it hasn't been on our website, they weren't aware it was when they were setting their schedules up for the year.
yeah.
No, as long as we're in discussion, let me read the letter that was sent.
Sure.
This was sent by Larry Fiorella. Actually, Melissa Scorsia Tapp also. So the idea of charging vendors an annual fee, whether nominal or excessive, is counterproductive to attracting commerce and activities throughout the village. No business in the immediate area of Barclay Commons is in support of these annual fees, no matter food, wineries, or crafters. This is based on interviews with the business owners along Main Street. No vendor would like to pay the fee to operate all year round. Most of the crafters operate as a side job, as an extension of their hobby. In fact, they barely break even at our festivals after paying us $25 per event festival fee. That's right, $25 for crafters, not $400 as erroneously provided during one of the trustee meetings. Furthermore, Festivals Fredonia charges the same $25 fee for wineries, breweries, cider, cocktails, and $50 for food vendors. Prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the organization was considering increasing the fees to cover the increased costs of advertising promotion of the festivals, but decided not to after the pandemic because of increased cost of everything to the vendor community. We're still evaluating increases while we continue to make decisions to curb our promotional activities. Regarding food vendors and the annual fee, be aware that New York State mobile food vendors now have to associate with or establish their own commissary for food prep, cleanup, essentially making them a brick and mortar to operate from, meaning the definition of the current law would exempt them from paying the village a food vendor fee unless rewritten to clarify. Lastly, enacting any vendor fee scenario now would be infeasible to any vendor currently, as we are almost midway through the year and planning for festivals and events that would become a burden on all parties. Also, to be quite frank, the village has much larger issues to address. Vendor fees are a distraction from those issues. I would not be materially beneficial to the village from a revenue standpoint. I would also wonder if the village would need to create a new position for enforcing the vendor laws, since we now know that Chuck has pretty full plate currently. Thanks for listening. Mr. Larry Fiorella.
Well, I think he didn't have the entire information when he wrote that letter, for one thing, because I think he was assuming that every vendor, whether they were part of an organized event or not, was going to be charged.
Correct.
And he's not right when he says that no one pays a $400 fee to be part of a festival. That's just inaccurate. There are food and beverage vendors at the farm festival that pay $400. So he's inaccurate there as well. And then he mentioned that we shouldn't start till next year. That part I agree with him. But I think he was coming from a viewpoint that everybody that vends during part of the Italian festival or Miracle on Main Street or any of those festivals are going to have to pay that fee too, and that's not part of that law. So,
Right.
well, I respect his opinion because he's been at his position for quite a while. I think given that information, I don't know what his opinion would be. Chuck?
Well, first of all, I do my job. Okay? I will find the time to do my job. He doesn't have to tell me I don't have the time. Second of all, the commissary thing is a county law, not a village law and not a state code law. I only enforce our law and state fire code. So I don't know where that makes a difference for the commissaries, but I'm not sure if there's a confusion still. This doesn't involve the food trucks.
Right.
This is just the people with tents and stuff like that. So what we're saying is, we're gonna wait another whole year before we start charging them, but are they gonna put in applications now and fulfill the rest of that law, where they have to give us their insurances and stuff? I'm totally confused on this whole process. And then it's a $100 fee. I thought we didn't want a $100 fee.
So you're just gonna operate as you've always been operating for the rest of this year until the
March of next
2026, yeah, until the 2026 applications start rolling, and then you'll be charging a $100 fee.
Okay, most of the time, they're not gonna know that they gotta come in the meeting. The food trucks do, because we've been doing this for a few years now. But in most cases, and Village of Fredonia doesn't ever tell them to come and get permits from us. They take what they need out of the pot and just wait for us to catch them. I've got several food trucks that way where Larry never told them that they needed permits from us.
When you hold an event though, Chuck, they're supposed to be putting that on their entry form.
Well, I
So in
don't
other
think they
words, if
are.
you are going to do this, you must contact such and such and such and such. Where the brick and mortar comes in,
Well, if a-
this whole thing again, I've lived here 38 years. If I see it go down the road one more time, it's unacceptable. My desire, I love the food trucks, they make great food, they're here for certain events, but it's our responsibility to protect the taxpayers, the brick and mortar people, the people that own the buildings, the people that, if a toilet breaks or freezes up, they have to fix it, the increases on paying hourly wages, et cetera, et cetera. So my reason for using brick and mortar was to say, yes, we love the food trucks when they're here, but 365 days a year competes with our brick and mortars, who we already have a couple of them that are going to part-time hours or less. So that being the case, also a commissary that's in Dunkirk, New York is not a brick and mortar in Fredonia, New York. And that was my reason for talking about protecting, and it's two different things. We're confusing vendor law with food truck law. They're two, I don't know why, but for some odd reason, they're two entirely different things. A vendor is somebody who vends, whether you're vending, candles or hot dogs. But that's another fight for another day. I would just like to see a decision made and stuck to, for not have to see this come across the desk every 2 weeks.
So basically, and maybe the police can help me, I don't know of any vendors that come into the park or around here other than during the festivals or an event. We don't usually have vendors setting up. The one truck, or a hot dog vendor, is a food truck. He's got a license plate, it's registered, and he is actually operating as a food truck. There is another vendor that you've seen out on Main Street that would be a vendor that wants to come into the park. But there's no way of stopping them if you're saying that they don't have to do anything until next year. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is come into the park on weekdays. They have a restaurant here, but they are also operating a food vending thing, which is part of a food truck. So there's no way of me doing anything to even the playing fields. Plus, when you have the festivals and stuff, and again, let me give you a history of this. How this started was, people were coming in and setting up tents and cooking underneath it. I had no control over that because it didn't fit into our food truck law. So that's what part of the vendor law is about. So I still have no control over certain people putting in grills underneath tents and stuff like that, and just selling whatever they want, anything they want during all the festivals, because it's not a food truck.
Does it not fall under a fire and safety code at all?
Not really, no. It does, but there's no way I can get to it. There's no law that's attaching me to go after that. because they don't have to come in and get a permit or give me any information. They give it all, once the vendor's law is passed or enforced, then they would have to do it under the vendor section.
So the people are watching this, I was just confused as you were until I learned a vendor would be someone who vends product, fruits, vegetables, that type of thing, candles, clothing that they make or they buy. A peddler, which was an argument last year, so we might as well open that again, is someone who goes door to door and has to get a license from the village clerk in order to come and sell you their encyclopedias or their magazines or those types of things. A food truck is a licensed vehicle with wheels that is a food truck, dispenses food. My discussion on it last year is I just thought $135 was not enough to be here 365 days with a food truck. So, and I thought that hurt our downtown business. I want to thank all of you for putting the time and effort into this, and I think it's a good idea to, as you said, wait until next year and not cause, there seems to be a lot of ideas out there that people just don't understand. So I think we need to take the time to break it down and all those topics we just talked about and make it easy for people to understand what's expected and when it will be expected. Before we go into the department reports, is there anything else left on that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be. Any other discussion on that?
Good.
If not, if you want to speak at the next meeting, if you would sign in at the podium, that'd be greatly appreciated. Department reports, code enforcement. Chuck?
So the fee's gonna be $100 then for the vendors? I'm still kind of hung up on that. So the fee's gonna be, because I know at first it was $50 and that was too much 3 weeks ago. But now it's gonna be $100 2 weeks later.
Oh, you know what?
I think it was 150.
Yeah.
at the
No, it
last
wasn't
meeting.
100, it was 100, it was
So now it's
$50.
100.
Right.
It's bouncing around.
At one time, you said even $10. I
Well,
know.
when we did the application, we just threw a fee on there and we just put it on there for $10. So it was nothing that was
Correct.
being enforced. So, but then we talked about doing a $50 fee. And then 3 weeks later, that was too much. And now 2 weeks later, now it's a $100 fee. So I'm just confused of what we're charging. So when people call, they're already calling me. I know we're not gonna do anything this year, but still I need to get my staff, up to date on stuff and the applications
It'll-
properly.
We'll put together a spreadsheet and make sure that everybody has it, of what the fees are for who.
Just to go back to the resolution real quick, should we separate out that below are the fees that will be effective beginning? Because I don't think we should pass a resolution that includes both the fee and passing the local law.
We already passed the local law.
Yeah, 2 weeks
Okay, so
ago.
this is just the fees, okay.
This is
Right.
just the fees and the dates
Okay,
of the
implemented.
effectiveness.
Sorry, I saw implement and then I was like, wait a minute. Okay,
Right idea, but yeah.
Chuck,
Yeah.
question, when the food trucks come, do they utilize power that's available in the park,
Sometimes they have generators.
right?
The Spanish food truck that you've been seeing out here, he has a generator. He runs a generator and stuff. The farmer's market, they use our power and, I believe, water.
Okay.
And bathrooms.
But otherwise, the food trucks that you're aware
They're usually
of
self-contained.
are self-contained, standalone?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and when we say bathrooms, they pay for those porta potties. The farmer's market pays for it, we don't pay for that. So,
Was, the vendor's law sent to the state already? Okay, so is it law now?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we were gonna enforce, not that we're gonna enforce it right now anyways, but I wasn't sure if it was being enforced yet or not.
Yes.
okay.
Okay. We have a zoning board meeting tomorrow night and a planning board meeting next week with the hospital. So,
What's the date, Chuck, with the hospital? People have asked me when that was gonna be.
15, I think. I think they're probably gonna come in the 15th and then the following month for their approval because we haven't even looked at the project yet. So everything's kind of being fast-tracked a little bit. so, for certain circumstances that we can talk about after if you want.
Would it be a Tuesday? That's the 17th.
Is it the 17th? I thought it was the 15th. I don't have my phone on me.
Yeah, the
Next
15th
week.
is a Sunday.
June 17th
Okay,
is a
whatever, yeah,
Tuesday.
Whatever, I gotta do a legal notice for the paper,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
And their submission should be here on Friday. But that has gone to to all the agencies that are involved, the county and stuff, so it'll take a little while.
Do they have a revised site plan?
Right?
Revised site plan?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have that yet, or you're?
I haven't seen anything yet. I've been
Okay.
working with the attorneys and asked if we can kind of like move things along as quickly as possible.
Gotcha.
So,
I met with them last week, which was going to be part of my report. I met with Calida officials, and I met with Ken Morris. Project's funded, they're moving forward, so, and
Okay.
they said, just like Kathy Okel said, 2 years from the time it goes into the ground, so, all the other work has been done on the site. Now they're just, they're following what they have to do.
and I'm sure the mayor probably has even more information than I have about it, about what's going on, because he's had more meetings.
I'll share it with you, John.
I don't know until they're at my door and say, here you go.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to keep up with the grass cutting and stuff. It's kind of crazy out there here with this rain and stuff. So we got a lot of violations out there for grass and stuff like that. And I do have to get with Alyssa. I have a garage that's collapsed, partially collapsed, over on Chautauqua, and the owner's dead. So we're gonna probably have to at least get that garage down. But, I'll have to have Alyssa wait for a magic wand or something.
Is that an eminent domain situation, since there's, the property owner's dead?
Well, we send out our normal notices and stuff, and as long as nobody responds, we'll just take the garage down, that's up, and cut the grass, and clean up the property a little bit. I'm getting a lot of complaints from the neighborhood.
Okay.
And we gotta get rid of the dangerous situation. It's just that bad. We have pictures if you wanna see it. Yeah,
I trust you. Anything else, Chuck?
I don't think so.
Okay. Chief? Police?
The new parking tickets have arrived. The old ones have been thrown away, and the new ones have been distributed, so everybody knows. Our cadet, Bradley Lawson, is doing well in the academy. He checks in with me every week, and he's doing well. Can't wait for him to be back. I just need a few minutes. I'll try and be brief. It's just I've received a lot of feedback from last meeting and a lot of questions, and it's created some work. But I put a document in your mailboxes today. It needs some explanation. I've been employed here as a member of the Fredonia Police Department for almost 30 years. The last 4 years as the chief of police. 15 years prior to that, I was the investigative sergeant. 3 years prior to that, I was the investigator for the drug task force. So almost 20 years of my career, I've been in a supervisory role, and the chief before me, he taught me to be here someday. More importantly, I'm also a taxpayer. I've lived here for almost 32 years, and things that this board faces and what I face are very near and dear to me. The last board meeting, another department head spoke about the police budget, referencing as far back as the 2013-2014 budget. It's 13 budget cycles. That's almost half of my 30-year career. So what I did was I got all those numbers. I got every budget cycle and analyzed it. And just so you know, those aren't my numbers. I received them from the Treasurer's Department. I've even asked the Treasurer to analyze my analysis because I don't want to be inaccurate. But what it shows is that In the last 13 years, the police budget has grown 25.2%. That's an annual average of 1.96% a year, well below the 3% average that we have here in the United States. Historical numbers show that since 2013, there's been a 37% increase in gross national product. So we're well below the growth of any other industry. I'd also like to point out that in the last eight budget cycles, which is COVID, which is the high inflationary period where we've faced over the last 4 years, our cost only rose 13.4% in the last 8 years. That's 1.67% a year. So I believe we've controlled our costs through that period of time. Now, my name was mentioned in last meeting's report. During last fiscal year, halfway through the budget year, we were presented with a fiscal crisis. On December 13th, we had a special meeting because we needed to trim costs. At that meeting, we didn't trim costs, but it was discussed. And I made an observation because I've been here 5 years and I felt like we've been doing our part. So I did defend the police department. February 21st, I learned that $72,000 was removed from last year's budget. Now, trying to keep budgets thin over the last couple of years, that money was earmarked. Last year, my department went without training ammo, tires. I planned on Fred Fest overtime, and that money was taken. And I'm not sitting here complaining, we're gonna figure it out. But $72,000 of things that was supposed to be bought for the police were not. And it just begs the question, why and where did it go? And that's not for me to answer, but that is what happened. So I'm not quite sure the intent of last week's speech. A sitting trustee on this board at a meeting in February 5th of this year stated the police are down an officer. In fact, right now I'm down 2 officers because historically we're down 1, and I'm down 1 right now because there's a hiring shortage. I literally can't find somebody to hire that meets the qualifications set forth by New York State. So I do believe the police have been fiscally responsible under the constraints of the village. To go a little further, even at budget hearings, I have presented factual data from the FBI, the NIJ, and New York State DCGS outlining communities of our size and population, on average in New York State, have 7 to 8 more officers. Well, we're getting the job done, but we've always been asked to do more with less. And I'd also like to point out that at the start of this fiscal year, the Fredonia Police Department has 0 debt associated with the village debt service. For the public, that means we have not borrowed money. No money is being spent in the police department that has to be borrowed against. So that in itself explains why we're driving cars with 100,000 miles on, and I got 2 in the parking lot that don't run right now. I will finish with this. The population demographics and the demands placed on the police have changed over the last several years. The stress on the department and its members have increased. We serve the village from the basement of a 200-year-old building and operate vehicles beyond their expected use. Over the past years, we have purchased items required for our job through grants. Over the last 2 years, We've bought computers, body cameras, the radios we use, all equipment that is necessary to do jobs. We've done it with grant money. So have relieved the taxpayers of even that burden. So what that document demonstrates the last 13 budget cycles reflect that the police have minimized spending and worked within the budget parameters. The 5-year drain on the budget reserves were not due to the police. And I just think the members of my police department are doing their part to control cost, and we are doing our part. With that, I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you. Any updates on the recreation department?
There was a message sent out by Kayla that if parents wish to sign their children up to come here to the second floor. I did mention the times and dates at our last meeting. I'm sorry, I'm just unable to recall the time, but if people would look on the website Recreation Department, all that information is there.
Perfect, thank you. Wastewater treatment plant.
We have been working on repairs for the ferric chloride pumping system. We have been replacing some of the valves and the piping for that system. And we still have a little bit more to go, but we got most of the work done on that, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Water treatment plant.
Nothing to report.
How could you have nothing?
Well, because there's really nothing going on. We're still waiting on engineers to come through.
What about the liquid chlorinator? I have a question.
Ask it.
Where's the liquid chlorinator at this?
Still waiting on the engineers. That has nothing to do with me. I mean, they're not gonna start anything until I believe July.
They have to put everything up for bid, and it takes a while, I'm sure, to get those bids in, so they can't do the work till the bids come in.
Well, because it's emergency repair, there's no bid.
There's no bid,
However,
right.
they do have to identify a contractor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's where they're
Thank
at.
you.
and that's got nothing to do with Lewis at all.
Frankly,
Well, I
over
had that question. He is the supervisor of the
He
water
is.
plant.
He
So he
is.
should be able to answer that. That's why I asked.
Okay.
I can't push the bell any faster than.
Okay, Louis, thank you.
and considering what's gone on with water over the years, I'm pleased you have nothing else to report at this point. Under new business, we've been awarded a FEMA grant. And it says congratulations on receiving a grant award from the DEC's non-agricultural, non-point source planning and municipal separate storm sewer system mapping grant. Grant is for $37,500 and the Village of Fredonia is signed by contract number. There are a lot of pages of some very heavy words here, but I want to thank Erlissa and also want to thank Scott and a couple other folks. I don't know if you had anything to do with that too, but it's nice to get that work out of the way.
Is that a matching grant?
This one is not a matching grant, no.
What does $37,000 get us?
It's for mapping our storm sewer system.
Okay.
Mayor, I was on a webinar today for that specific grant, non-ag.
Right.
And I got a lot of details on that. I took notes, so I got familiarized with it, educated. I'm
Thank you.
glad that we have it.
Yeah. Well, it's also going to go a long way on, depending on which way we go here, so.
Sure.
Excellent. Yes.
So are we gonna become an MF4 agency? Where we have to do all the mapping of all this outfalls and stuff?
I believe that is in conjunction, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the DEC. The
And-
DEC will be working with Lewis or Scott on that. Probably Scott, because it's the infrastructure
Maybe Scott,
outside the
yeah.
plant. Yeah.
Okay, because usually they want us to be an MF4 agency, and then we're stuck doing that every single year,
Yeah.
and that can be pretty pricey.
I mean, if we have, if you could direct the question to me, I could direct it to the contact person at the DEC.
Well, in my previous life, I was the MF4 officer, that's why I'm kind of familiar with it, but there's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
Because every year you have to go out and map these, especially after rain, you gotta go out, test the water and make sure there's no bios in there or anything. It's not an easy process. If they're giving us $37,000, I send it back and say, no, we're not doing it. It's gonna cost a lot more than that.
Is that-
Plus, we always had an engineer that we worked with, you know, who helped us, so.
I know with
That's
the,
it.
I'm sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
And plus, you gotta be certified. I had to go for training for probably four different courses to be an officer for that.
So with the other FEMA grant, we had an opportunity to talk to them for a couple hours to kind of, and this was for $167,000, I think. There's 25% matching, so I'm wondering if there's gonna be an introductory Zoom conference with FEMA to go over all the parameters and what our obligations are gonna be. Did they talk about that at all? When you,
The FEMA element,
yeah,
if they did, it was very, like, maybe one slide.
okay. It might be in that paperwork.
It's in the paperwork here.
Okay.
And anything under old business?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. So I talked to Dave Felt about the PPD contract. I reported last week that I would go through the old contract and the latest version and kind of meld them together and make sure the village was protected. But after going through the old contract, I realized how little I knew about engineering and wastewater treatment plants and that kind of thing. So I talked to Dave, and Dave and I are gonna get together this week, go through the old contract and see what in there is still applicable and what might no longer be applicable. So I'll have that at the next meeting.
Excellent. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
I have one, Mayor.
Yes.
I spoke for the last 2 sessions, deer population issue. I'm going to have a DEC rep here on Monday, June 23, at our workshop to present on that issue.
One was standing right in the middle of Howard Street on my way here today and did not want to move. Looked at me quite annoyed that I was making it
Yeah.
move.
So time of the meeting,
Everywhere.
perhaps.
As I said, I got a picture, I think 2 weeks ago, of 25 deer standing across the street from the person's house next to Fredonia place up there by the creek.
Yeah, they hang.
So they're everywhere.
Yeah, just turned around, stared at me,
Lots
was
of-
it chewed? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Could be worse, could be bears.
They're around.
Okay, there's nothing else to bring up at the workshop. I get a motion to end this session.
We don't need a motion to end the session,
Just go ahead and do it.
okay.
You got it. Okay, that ends this session. We'll break until 7 o'clock to give people time to get in for the regular meeting. Thank you. You can join us back online at 7 o'clock tonight. Board of Trustees
File 2.
regular meeting
Auxiliary information.
on today, June 9th, 2025, at 911 Church Street in Fredonia, New York. I'm Mayor Mike Ferguson. We call this meeting to order. Roll call, Trustee Esperson. Here. Trustee Brockler.
Here.
Trustee Syracuse.
Here.
Trustee Wendell.
Here.
Trustee Twitchell.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of minutes.
Whereas members of this board have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees regular meeting of May 27th, 2025, be it resolved that the board hereby approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be it further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
Second.
Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
This portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak, once recognized, shall stand at the microphone, state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes of speaking for themselves, 5 minutes of speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken and contemplated by the board. I ask for everybody's patience because this is my first time with the time clock and it looks very complicated, so take care. First speaker tonight, Mr. Jim Sedota.
Thank you. I'm Jim Sedona, I live in the Village of Fredonia. I was the village administrator, clerk treasurer for 30 years before I retired. And the subject tonight is the monetary costs from the Labella May 2025 report, comparing alternate 1 improvements to the dam and water treatment plant versus alternate 2, the interconnect with the North County Water District. Labella has recommended alternate 2, but the basis for the recommendation is largely non-monetary. The report states in Table 1, the initial project funding opportunity the village seeks excludes reservoir drawdown as an eligible project cost. Therefore, the opinion of probable cost and asset investment schedule presented herein excludes costs related to the reservoir drawdown. On page 77, Table 6, the cycle cost analysis, it's the simple annual average total cost over a 30-year cycle. Now, these are this is right out of their, these aren't my numbers, okay, they're their numbers. Alternate 1 shows a total $5,766,000 as the annual, that's the annual average cost, versus alternate 2, which is $7,529,000. The difference is $1,763,000. That would be per year. So you multiply that by the 30-year cost to arrive at the total cost for each. Alternate, not 1 total cost is $1,728,980. Alternate 2 cost is $225,870,000. The cost, alternate 2's cost is higher than alternate 1 by $52,890,000. Comparing alternate 3 with the first Labella report, total cost was $25,290,000. Alternate 2 is higher by $27,600, so you add the two together, and the total increased cost for alternate 2 is $52,890,000, which is stated above also. Table 7.1 suggests total asset investment schedule costs for 2029 will be the beginning of the recommended alternate 2, and the table shows an annual total cost of debt service, operation and maintenance costs, and consumption costs that totaled $7,098,043. If you recall, they mentioned that the project would take about 3 years to complete, and so 2029 is the first year where the total costs are included. So that's...
Jim, my fault, I started you at 2 minutes, so you still have 1 more minute left.
Okay. The estimated rate for that is $28.28. The current rate is $7. That rate is taking the total cost and dividing it by 251 million gallons of water used, billable water. That's in the report. Example 1 for residential cost, on table 13, the typical resident of 2.2 million, or 2.2 people in the household, using 56 million gallons of water per year, times the estimated rate of 28.28, the total cost for that year would be $1,584. The current cost, based on $3 or $7, is $392, or an increase of $1,191.
You wrap up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just got one more. The last example is for commercial customers, and there's a listing of all the different commercial customers. I just picked one. It's in table 14. I used the customer using 1,473,000,000 gallons of water. At the rate of 28.28, the total estimated cost would be $41,656. The current cost at $7 per thousand would be $10,311, or an increase of $31,345. All of this information is out of your report. And the cost, this is a big project. $225 million is, over 30 years, is a huge project. It requires a financial consultant to provide you and verify these numbers, and more study needs to be involved. This is a preliminary report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandrell? Did you want to remain seated or no? You good?
I'll stand up, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, hang on a
Thank
second.
you, Mayor.
You're representing a group tonight?
The Sicilian Historical Society.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
And Mr. Luce, Brian Luce, gave me permission. He's a managing member.
Okay, you're going to hear it, Pete. I'll give you 2 minutes after that. All righty?
I've got some observations and suggestions concerning our budget. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the board for taking these positions. They're thankless positions. I was village attorney for 48 years, and I've seen a lot of different situations come before the board, and things have become much more complicated today than they were 40 years ago. And people who are voted to come into office are respected people in our community. They've been voted in by the people in this community, but unfortunately, they have, and I don't mean this to be critical, but you don't have much information on how a government runs. It takes time to know the issues, and by the time you really know the issues, your term of office is expired. So I have sympathy for what you might be going through. I have some suggestions and observations regarding our village finances. As you're aware, the taxpayers and the residents are upset because of a 60% increase in village taxes, and that's unheard of. I haven't even heard of another municipality that's ever gone this bad, this serious increase in taxes. And it's going to have a ripple effect. Those taxpayers who have mortgages and tax escrows don't receive their tax bills, they go directly to the bank. So when the bank sees an increase in taxes, the bank automatically increases the monthly mortgage payments so that the taxpayer will get that increase in mortgage payments to pay for his taxes. So what he's going to see is not the tax bill. He's going to see a monthly increase every month in his monthly mortgage payment. And that'll continue until there's a reduction in taxes, and then that takes time to kick in. Just something you should be aware of. I think some of you are that have a mortgage and have tax escrows. Rick St. George, our former village administrator, reported at a recent meeting that the village board not only spent the village fund balance of over $750,000, but at the end of the year, it had a negative fund balance of over $300,000. That means the village spent more than $1 million than was budgeted. The village taxpayers are entitled to a written explanation of the tax increase and overspending. But as much, more important probably, they're going to want to know, what is your remedy? What are you going to do to prevent this from next year? I have some suggestions that I'd like to present to the board. And the mayor, your chief budget officer, I'd like to see a report made as to what the village board intends to do to correct this problem. Because if you don't correct it, it's going to happen again. The board should implement an austerity budget that will create a fund balance or a surplus that can be applied to next year's budget and reduce taxes. Although the village board adopted a budget for this fiscal year, the budget can always be amended. Anticipated purchases or projects should be delayed or canceled until the tax rate is reduced substantially and a fund balance created that can be applied to the next budget. There should be a hiring freeze. If an employee retires, the board should leave that position vacant and have the rest of the employees pick up the slack until a village budget is reasonable and spending under control. That might mean extra work, but our employees are good workers. They know what's happened and they can do it. It's better than laying off employees. Our employees will be paid overtime for the extra work they do. I've found this to be true. Wise use of overtime is a way to reduce employment costs because the village will not be paying a full salary and also not paying the cost of health insurance and not paying New York State retirement premiums, which is required for a full-time employee. This can result in a substantial savings to our taxpayers. The board hired auditors at the last meeting, but did not assign them any specific duties in the resolution. The auditor should have been asked in the resolution hiring them to provide the village board with their explanation for the reasons for the tax rate increase, and more importantly, suggest solutions to the board to consider. There has to be better and more public disclosure also of public expenditures. Attach a copy of the bills to be paid to the abstract of bills to be approved so that the taxpayers know where the money is being sent. Make it public at the meeting.
You still have a minute, Sam, don't worry.
Thank you. Am I getting 5 minutes, Mayor?
Yeah, you got one more.
Also, the village
Someday I'll
board
run out.
recently approved an employment contract between the village and the Police Benevolent Association. But the resolution gave absolutely no terms of the contract for the public to see. It just said the contract is approved. In the past, we would put in the highlights of what are the pay increases, what are the percentage increase. Nothing. It just said the PBA contract's approved. The news media could do much more. The Observer reports in the paper the names of sellers and buyers and the sale price of their homes in our area. Basically, that's private information, but they can get the records from the county clerk's office. Why was there no report in the Observer on the terms of the PBA contract and other contracts with public employees? This is public information, and these contracts involve the use of large amounts of taxpayer money. The Observer should be playing a significant role in information dissemination and promoting transparency in our public contracts. Public spending of taxpayer money is more important than private home sales. Use of taxpayer money needs to be disclosed publicly by the news media. The Observer should be asking questions and gathering information from village officials on village expenditures which affect the public and which the taxpayers are expected to pay. The public has a right to know how their money is being used, and the newspaper has an obligation to the public to make sure they are informed to the fullest extent possible. The news media has the power and the Freedom of Information Law to obtain public information from the village regarding the finances, and it needs to do that.
That's time, Sam.
Thank you.
That ends the public portion of tonight's meeting. Thank you.
I believe somebody just came in. Did you want to speak? Oh, okay. I was just
Yeah, I had two names there.
concerned. Okay, thank you.
Would you like to sing? Would you like to? No?
Don't get her
Okay.
started.
Correspondence. Correspondence dated March 24th, 2025 was received from Albert Nye Jr., Northern Chautauqua County Youth Hockey Association, requesting permission to hold a skate drive at the intersection of Temple and Church Street on June 14th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m.
Be resolved, Northern Chautauqua County Youth Hockey Association has permission to hold their skate drive at the intersection of Temple and Church Streets, so long as it is done safely. I guess that means not on skates. On June 14th, 2025, from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m.
Second.
Before we vote, I just want to remind the public that there's no standing in the street during this, no standing in the intersections. If you do an event like this, it has to be done by standing on the sidewalk or near the curb. You can go out to a car if it stops for you. It's for your safety. Trustee Esperson.
Aye.
Trustee Brockler.
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell. Aye. Trustee Twitchell.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor's report. On May 29th, we appeared on WDOA's Viewpoint with Greg Larson, lively conversation. May 29th also, we met with a number of the New York Main Street participants to talk about business in the downtown core. Many of those projects have started already. This was a grant that was given to us last summer. So you should be seeing some improvements in local businesses. We're also talking to the state about the possibility of this year's participation as well. On May 30th, John Esperson and Alyssa LeBeau and I met with Honk Parking App Company. Honk sent us a proposal for our review and our approval, and very interesting discussion, and should be very affordable and should increase our parking revenues. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, the new parking tickets are out and it's $25, correct, on the parking fine?
I know the new ones are out. I believe that figure is accurate.
Okay. On June 1st, participated as Reverend Brown, who welcomed General Lafayette to Fredonia for his historic visit. I want to thank both the library and the Historic Society and all the people who played part in that reenactment of General Lafayette's visit to Fredonia. Originally, he did it on June 4th at 3:30 in the morning. We didn't think we'd get many people at that time, so we decided to do it in the afternoon. On June 3rd, we met some of the new officials of Kaleida Health, along with Brooks CEO Ken Morris and PR expert Mike Gilbert. Plans for the hospital are new drawings being prepared and proposed with the approval by the Fredonia Zoning Board. And Governor Hochul, as well as Kaleida, is still calling for the hospital to be open in 2 years from the time of digging. Many people don't realize, but there's been a lot of work done on that property. They took out a lot of the great land that was back there. They took down the original Cornell Research Building, the white building. And it took a while to take the building down because there had to be asbestos abasement done on that in order to get it ready. So things are moving forward, and I want to thank them for continued and open discussions with us throughout this process. On June 4th, we continued to review a study provided by Labella Engineering of Buffalo, wrapping our head around possible costs, long-term vision, and more. And June 6th, I'm proud to say the village has been awarded the grant that we talked about a little bit earlier. The village officials are planning a meeting with several area fire companies to discuss the merger of some companies to formulate a new fire district. The district benefits the communities that they serve in the long run. More information will be available once we have this meeting in 2 weeks. We received a request from the president of the Chautauqua Pickleball Club, as well as several private citizens, to discuss current issues taking place at the park, including smoking of cigarettes and marijuana and loud playing of vulgar music on the basketball courts. They're asking for rules and regulations to be posted in all the parks, and we feel that's fair, but we'll give it up to the board to discuss that in our next meeting. A reminder, the Italian Festival is happening this coming weekend, and there will be signs on in front of the firehouse and also on Main Street. And finally, work continues on the new New York Main Street project. As I mentioned, I'll update you with this year's offerings, which the deadlines have been presented, and also the criteria for presenting it as well. If you own a business in the downtown core, which is being identified from pretty much near Pucci's to Triaga's, from Water Street up to Howard, and Water Street to the college, you will be able to participate in this year's program once that is announced. And that's all I have. Trustee committee reports. Trustee Wandel.
Thank you, Mayor. June 3rd, I attended the Lafayette General Marquis de Lafayette celebration. Great event. I want to thank the museum and all those who helped to make that work. Also, on June 5th, which was this past Friday, I had a in-depth, detailed technical discussion with Labella Engineering regarding the recent water treatment plant presentation and report, considering alternatives 1 and 2. A number of questions were asked and a number of questions were answered. I'm sure more will be forthcoming, but we're moving along on that. Also, an update on the liquid chlorinator project that is moving along. We should see some developments on that forthcoming in the next few weeks. The Webster Zanzi, our legal counsel, is reviewing the seeker status applications, and once that's complete, I believe that's currently happening, they will advise both the village and Labella on the status of that. I visited the water treatment plant today, this morning. Spent a couple hours there working with the plant supervisor. A number of questions and details. So it was a data gathering mission, just checking on, making sure everything was operating good. Nothing major to report. And then I also had a water treatment, actually it was a water grant webinar today at 1 p.m. for the regarding the New York State DEC grant opportunities, which you had just alluded to, and that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Twitchell.
Yes, I also attended the Lafayette celebration, and I want to thank Max Walters, the curator of the museum, for all of his hard work and all of his volunteers. It was a really great event, and a lot of people did turn out for that. And this past Thursday, I attended the cable board meeting, and I invited Max Walters and Graham Tedesco Blair to attend the meeting to talk about programming. And we did talk about some programming we would like to do to have the cable committee come and film some of the presentations that Max will be doing at the Italian Festival this coming weekend. And also Graham requested to have some filming of children's stories. The 21st? Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chip. That's fine. So June 24th. June 21st. I stand corrected on that one. That's when the Italian Festival is. And I also, I have a statement to make about the latest water study and the management of our fire department. We have been presented with another water study prepared by Labella Engineering. The Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia did not vote to conduct this latest study, which was prepared on behalf of the county's water district and paid for by the taxpayers of Chautauqua County through the county legislators' general fund. Although we are told that certain details have yet to be included, I see enough information to know that there is no good deal to be had by the village to become a dependent on the county and the city of Dunkirk for its water supply. This board has failed its fiduciary responsibilities to the taxpayers who began to open their property tax bills last week. Both the previous Labella study and the new Labella study show how the taxpayers will be further burdened if we fail to maintain our own reservoir and water treatment plant. And also, I did want to talk about the Department of Homeland Security offered us a grant. I believe we should be applying now for a grant offered by the Federal Department of Homeland Security FEMA Division. The FEMA proposal is designed to analyze the options for managing the reservoir dam. The FEMA study would provide information needed regardless of this board's decision to keep or abandon the reservoir as a source of water. We can pay for the study now using our existing water fund balance. And I did check with the treasurer about this, and she did confirm that we would be able to do that. And I also want to talk about, I have been criticized for pointing out that the fire department has overestimated revenue, spent money it doesn't have, and accounts for nearly 70% of the village's budget deficit. I accept this criticism as a form of shooting the messenger. Now there is a discussion of forming a fire district, which would be a new taxing entity over which we can have no control. We are entrusted by the taxpayers to manage the fire department within the ability to support it. We should be downsizing the fire department via attrition, arbitrating contractual limitations, eliminating unnecessary taxpayer equipment purchases and maintenance, and seeking shared services with other municipalities. This is the hard work we were elected to do. I believe that forming a fire district would be another example of this Board of Trustees looking elsewhere to solve problems, just like handing over our water responsibilities to the county. A new fire district will cost more than keeping our own fire department. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Syracuse.
Embrace Fredonia held their annual community planning day on May 31st. It was weather similar to this, as usual. The Embrace board planted more on Saturday, June 1st, as the rain obviously led to some delays in work. So we have some thank yous to pass along. Thank you to the volunteers and the groups, especially the Fredonia High School Garden Club for helping, as well as the following donors: Muldowney Brothers Landscaping for topsoil, Pierce Services for mulch, Home Depot and Dunkirk for gardening tools and supplies, Glen Acres Nursery donated 8 bushes, Harvest View Greenhouses and Tuscany both donated flowers, 21 Bricks donated 2 wine barrels that were turned into planters, Blaisdell Pizza and Tim Hortons kept everyone fed with coffee, hot chocolate, donuts, and pizza. Through the couple of days, approximately 29 tree beds, including the trees by Village Hall, 2 monuments, and 8 barrels had flowers planted around them, and all of those areas in the gazebo had new mulch spread as well. Flowers were planted by Village Hall, and 8 new bushes were planted in the empty areas along the steps closer to the building that will grow and fill in over the next few years.
Thank you. I do want to mention, I'm glad you brought that up. Embrace Fredonia, this is now the 3rd or 4th year that they've been doing this?
I think it's the
Second year.
3rd.
Okay, there's something there. But just tremendous donations, thousands and thousands of dollars to beautify the downtown, and we've had calls from or Embrace has had calls from other companies that want to take part next year. We thank them for the hard work. This is the 2nd year. My wife and I participated in the 2nd year. I believe Trustee Esperson participated. and it rains, which is great for the flowers, but it usually rains on Saturday, and the next day, when we come back on Sunday, they're back out there again with the, putting all the extras in. So we appreciate them, we appreciate Festivals Fredonia and all the groups in the community, but we want to thank our community businesses for the time and money that they put into this, so thank you for bringing that up. Right? Trustee Esperson.
Just a couple things. I want to thank Mr. Sedota for his discussion, but I would have to point out a couple things, that all the figures in the report and in your discussion excluded any grant opportunities. Without any grant opportunities, there will be no project. We cannot afford to bond 20 million, 50 million, whatever it's going to cost. So these figures are assuming no grants are obtained. Alternate one, they did not include the cost of dredging because they don't know how much sediment will have to be removed. There's a 2000 study that indicated at that point it would cost about $11.5 million to dredge, assuming they could find a place to put the sediment that they do dredge. I would have to assume in the last 25 years those costs have gone up considerably. When Labella was informed, when he informed them that the cost of dredging was included, they said they didn't. They were waiting for a study from the college to show them how much sediment or what the actual volume was, and they could estimate what the sediment amount would be, so they could give us that cost. I would also have to point out that alternate two from this study was not included in the first study, so the price didn't change because it wasn't included in the first study they did. Alternate two was hooking up directly with Dunkirk, which wasn't included in this study. So I wanted to point those things out. The only thing I had is the first time we met with Honk, Chief Price wasn't able to participate. I thought it was important to get his input. So Dave and I had another conference with a Honk rep because I wanted Dave to know exactly what it was their officers would be required to do if we got rid of the meters and went to their system, which would be an app or a placard that you would have to scan in order to pay for parking, and what the police would have to do to enforce that. So Dave and Erlis and I will get together and talk about the pricing and the manpower usage, and if that will increase or decrease, it would actually cost the village more or less to go with that system. That's all I've got.
Also, you mentioned about the app. It's also a product that you don't have to have the app itself. Merely if you have a cell phone with a camera on it, if you point it at the sign, it'll bring it up automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about downloading apps. They have an app that goes with it, especially if you're going to be using it on a regular basis, but it's kind of unique because you don't necessarily have to have that. Thank you for, sorry, I missed you, Ben.
I really
Trustee
don't have
Brockman.
anything.
Okay. Treasurer's report, there is none tonight. The additional report is building inspector for the month of May 2025. There were 34 permits issued, 86 inspections. Certificate of occupancy were 45. Certificate of compliance, 34. Violations found, 11. Violations satisfied, 7. Fees collected, building permit was $4,107.70. Rental fees were $930. Certificate of compliances, $1,100. Plumbing license fee, $150. Hearings, water and sewer, $200, for a total of $6,487.70. For rental, permit inspection, 11. Renewals, 7. Property management, property maintenance found, 17. Removed, 4. Junk cars and parts found, removed 3, or found 3, removed 0. Miscellaneous annual fire inspections, 10. Fire notifications, 0. Appearance tickets, 0. Complaints, 5 out of 6 were satisfied. Demolitions, the stop work order on 4. Stop work order are issued because of improper construction practices or failure to get the building permit. 34 permits generated $4,107.70 in revenue. The estimated cost of work for the month of May was $479,282. So thank you, Chuck, for that report. Resolutions.
Be it resolved that the schedule of meetings and workshops of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia for the period of July through December 2025, see attached, as set forth and attached to these minutes, is hereby approved. And be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized to publish said notice in and mail a copy of said schedule to WDOE, the Observer, and the Buffalo News.
Second.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Nay.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Switchell?
Nay.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye. Hold it.
Aye.
Oh, Brockman, sorry. Looking at my paper here. Next.
Be it resolved that the regular and overtime payrolls for the various village departments and bills approved by the Finance Committee and set forth in abstract number 763 through 766 are hereby approved and directed, paid, and filed in the village's clerk office, 911 Church Street, Fredonia, New York.
Second.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5520 of Village Law, the following budget transfers are hereby approved. $1,300 from G8130.11 sewage treatment overtime to G8130.422 sewage treatment utilities heat.
Second.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Whereas the village requires a service maintenance contract for the equipment at the filtration plant, and whereas Hack Company of Island, New York has offered to provide a maintenance contract to include calibrations, technical calls, and yearly maintenance for a yearly price of $16,514, whereas this contract is necessary for the village's purpose to maintain the equipment processing the water for the village, therefore, be it resolved, the village board hereby authorizes entering into the maintenance agreement for 1 year with Hatch for $16,514.
Second.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye. I might get a motion that we table the next resolution until we get a more complete invoice.
Second.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Whereas the Village of Fredonia implemented local law number 5 of 2025 entitled Vendors, and whereas this code allows for the trustees to establish a set of fees to obtain a vendor's license which will be valid for a year beginning April 1st through March 31st, and therefore below are the fees that will be effective beginning April 1st, 2026. A vendor's license annual fee of $100. License fees for vendors who are part of an organized event, that would be festivals, Fredonia events, Farm Festival, or the Farmers Market, are waived. Be it resolved, the village board hereby approves the vendor's fees effective April 1st, 2026.
Second.
Before we vote, can I ask a simple question? What other vendor events do we have? We just named them all off and they're all exempt.
The fee would only apply to somebody who was selling here, not as part of a
Right.
organized event. We did have someone last year
Yeah.
who was setting up during the
So we've gone
the
through all this
music.
to make $100
Through the
this
music.
year.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Trustee,
Time out. That's a very unfair statement. We're not doing it for this year, we're doing it for the foreseeable future, so there's a policy in place when it does happen.
There you go.
Right.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Is there any reason to go into executive session at this time? If not, I ask for a motion to end the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Esperson?
Aye.
Trustee Brockler?
Aye.
Trustee Syracuse?
Aye.
Trustee Wendell?
Aye.
Trustee Twitchell?
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next meeting of the Village of Fredonia Board of Trustees Workshop and Board Meeting will take place Monday, June 23rd, 2025, 6 p.m. in the Trustee Room. Village Hall, board meeting to follow.